There are moments in history when arrogance walks proudly into the room, convinced that rank, reputation, and reputation alone make a person unbeatable. And then, quietly, almost invisibly, someone proves otherwise. The story you're about to hear isn't written in official reports. It wasn't printed in military textbooks or framed on a general's wall. But among those who were there, on a windswept Marine training range somewhere in the American Southwest, it became something far more powerful. A lesson, a legend, and it all started with a single question. Can I borrow your rifle for a minute? But to understand why that question stunned an entire base into silence, we have to go back to the morning it happened. The sun had barely climbed above the desert mountains when the Marine sniper range came alive. Dust hung in the air. Steel targets stretched across the valley, hundreds of them scattered across ridges and dunes, from 300 yards all the way to nearly a mile. It was supposed to be a routine demonstration. A group of elite Marine snipers had gathered to test a new long-range challenge, 100 targets staggered across distance and elevation. Each sniper would attempt to clear as many as possible before running out of time. These weren't ordinary shooters. These were the best marksmen the Corps had. Yet something wasn't going well. One by one, the snipers stepped forward. One missed. Another hit a few, then lost rhythm. Wind gusts twisted through the canyon, carrying dust and mirage that warped the targets. Even the veterans struggled. 30 hits, maybe 40, but no one could finish the full 100. And standing nearby, watching quietly from the edge of the range, was someone most of them barely noticed. A young woman in plain tactical gear. No rank flaunted, no loud confidence. Just calm eyes and patient silence. Her name was Lieutenant Elena Cruz. Most of the Marines assumed she was an observer, maybe a visiting analyst from another unit. What they didn't know was that Cruz had spent years in quiet, unforgiving sniper training environments, places where patience mattered more than pride, places where ego got people hurt. But on that range, arrogance was still in charge. The senior instructor, a decorated gunnery sergeant known for his brutal standards, shook his head in frustration as another sniper stepped away from the rifle. "Pathetic," he muttered. 100 targets and nobody can finish the course. The Marines stood stiffly. No one spoke, because challenging a gunny's judgment, especially on his own range, was not something anyone volunteered to do. Except someone did. A calm voice, female, respectful. "Excuse me, gunnery sergeant." Heads turned. Lieutenant Cruz stepped forward. "Can I borrow your rifle for a minute?" A few Marines chuckled under their breath. The gunny looked her up and down, disbelief written across his face. "You think this is a toy, Lieutenant?" "No, sir," she said calmly. "I just think the wind isn't the problem." Now the range went completely silent, because arrogance doesn't like being questioned, especially by someone quiet. The gunny smirked and handed her the rifle with a sarcastic shrug. "Knock yourself out." He expected a few shots, maybe a lucky hit or two. Instead,
Cruz knelt behind the rifle. The desert wind pushed across the valley. She watched the flags, watched the dust, watched the subtle shimmer of heat rising from the sand. Then she fired. Crack! A steel target 400 yards away rang sharply. Crack! Another target 600 yards. Crack! 800, 900. The rhythm became mechanical, precise, relentless. The rifle cracked again and again, each shot echoing across the valley like a metronome. No hesitation, no wasted motion. The Marines stopped whispering, stopped breathing, because something impossible was happening.
Targets were dropping one after another. 10, 20, 30, 40. The gunny smirk vanished. By the time Cruz reached 70 hits, the entire range had frozen. Every Marine watched as if witnessing something unreal. Wind gusted harder, mirage warped the distance. It didn't matter. Her breathing never changed. Her trigger never flinched. Crack, crack, crack. And when the final shot echoed across the canyon, the 100th steel plate rang like a bell. Silence followed. A silence so heavy it felt like the entire desert had stopped moving. Cruz calmly placed the rifle down and stood. The gunny stared at the cleared range. 100 targets, no misses. Then he looked at her. What the hell was that? Cruz answered simply. Wind reading. The Marines around them exchanged stunned glances because they all understood what had just happened. The challenge that defeated every sniper on the range had been solved in minutes, not with brute skill, but with patience, respect, control. The gunny exhaled slowly. For the first time that morning, his voice lost its edge. Lieutenant, where did you learn to shoot like that? Cruz met his gaze calmly. My instructors used to say something, she replied. They said arrogance pulls the trigger too fast. The gunny nodded once. No sarcasm now, no mockery, just quiet respect. Word of that morning spread faster than any official report. Within weeks, the story had traveled across multiple Marine units, a range demonstration where elite snipers failed and a quiet lieutenant cleared the entire course. Some Marines exaggerated it, some added details that probably never happened, but the heart of the story stayed the same. It became a lesson passed down to every new marksman who stepped onto that range. Not about perfect aim, not about superhuman skill, but about something deeper. Humility, patience, control.
Years later, instructors would still point toward the distant steel targets scattered across the valley and tell new recruits the same story. And somewhere in that lesson, they would repeat the words Cruz said before she ever picked up the rifle. Can I borrow your rifle for a minute? Because sometimes the quietest voice in the room carries the most power. And long after the dust of that desert range settled, Lieutenant Cruz left behind a line that every sniper who heard it remembered. Respect the wind, respect the moment, and never let arrogance pull the trigger. If this story reminded you that skill will always defeat arrogance, let us know in the comments. Share this story with someone who believes humility is real strength. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories from Tales of Courage.